Our story begins in 1908. The first Adventist missionaries had just arrived in Port Moresby, and they weren't welcome. The territories around Port Moresby had already been carved up by the churches, and no one wanted another Christian denomination, especially not the Adventists. So these early Adventist missionaries, the Carr family and a Fijian named Penny Tavoti, hiked up to the remote mountains to start their mission amongst the Koyari people. Turned out to be a very tough assignment.
Up there, yes, we're warriors. We're warriors. Normally, we have tribal fightings, so that's how we live up there before the Adventists went in.
Certainly, the early literature does agree with you that these tribes were warlike. They're described as bloodthirsty and similar sorts of terms.
From the start, the mission didn't go well. After a full year of hard work, not a single person came to the faith. Second year of hard yakka produced the same result. They'd left home, they're in one of the wildest places on earth, and after 2 long, hard years of work, they didn't have a single convert to show for it. What would you do? Give up? Move on? Go home? Finally, in the 6th year, a teenage boy was baptized. But his dad didn't like it very much. Made him leave the mission. Things were about to get a whole lot worse. In the 10th year, Penny Tavoti was bitten by a venomous snake. Quickly he became so ill he couldn't walk. Lying on his deathbed, he appealed to the young people to give their lives to Christ. Soon after, he breathed his last breath. Imagine the scene after Penny died. After 10 years of extraordinary labour, and all you have to show for it is one teenage boy who's abandoned his faith, one dead missionary, his widow, and fatherless children. Where was God? What was he doing? How can you get up the next morning and continue to preach the gospel again? But that's exactly what they did. In 1920, a boy named Bagani accepted the gospel, and this time it stuck. 4 years later, 11 more young people were baptized, and the gospel caught fire. In the mid-1930s, the Locke family, Adventist missionaries from Australia, moved along a rugged trail known as the Kokoda Track. They set up a mission school and clinic just inland of the village of Afogi. And along the Kokoda Track, the Adventist message was preached. At the time, no one knew that in only a few short years, the Kokoda Track would become the focus of one of the greatest dramas of World War II. The pivotal battle between the Imperial forces, the Australians, New Zealanders and their allies took place on this very track. But there's something different about this battle. See, it's not remembered for the fighting. It's remembered for the kindness shown by the Papuans in assisting wounded soldiers to safety. The Aussies were so impressed with the Papuans along the track that they called them angels.
Believe me, when this war is over and its history written, there is one chap that should get a large share of the praise. He is the Papuan. He sometimes arrives with bleeding shoulders, puts the wounded gently down, shakes himself, grins, and off he goes for another trip.
These men, so gentle and compassionate with men in pain, hold a justly honoured place in the esteem of every Australian.
Many a lad will see his mother, and husbands see their wives, just because Kokoda angels carried them to save their lives.
Above all, we should honour and express our profound admiration for the Papua New Guinean carriers, whose stalwart support was crucial to the final victory. The support they gave to Australian soldiers, the terrible conditions and dangers they endured with the soldiers, the illness, injury and death many of them suffered, constitutes one of the great human gestures of the war, maybe the great humane gesture of our history.
Their deeds must never be forgotten.
In recent years, people have questioned the Papuans' amazing selflessness. They point out that many were coerced by the Australian military into service, which begs the question, why would a people who were so mistreated be so kind in return? Remember, the early accounts of people along the Kokoda track were that of a savage and bloodthirsty, warlike people. So wouldn't a warlike people simply fight back? It turns out that those 12 long years trying to find one single person to accept the gospel had, by the time of the Kokoda battles, changed hearts. And those changed hearts changed history. By 1942, every village along the Kokoda track had come under Adventist mission influence, with baptized members in almost every village.
It was because of Pastor William Locke, because of his friendliness and introducing the gospel and way of living, changing the way of living. They saw that, and when the war came in 1942, Pastor William Locke had left already. So the villages there saw that they are from the same country, so they start helping the Australian soldiers. It was because of that Christian passion, they start helping. It was love that drives the hearts of the people to help those people.
Dear Pastor Locke, I'm writing this letter to tell you of the grand job done by the Papuans of your mission. The good work of your people who apparently have, by your example and teachings, reached a stage where they can teach us something of Christian ideals.
You had your loyal Papuans and your disloyal Papuans. Without being anyway sectarian, we found that the Seventh-day Adventists were by far outstanding in loyalty. I know of not one Seventh-day Adventist adherent who was anyway disloyal. I don't know what it is, but it just worked out that way. Well, the other religions could be one way or the other, but the Seventh-day Adventists, for some reason, were particularly loyal. And, well, they always were a cleaner people. They taught them cleanliness and respect and loyalty and cheerfulness. If you had to rely on a Papuan without knowing him or knowing the circumstances, the fact that he was a Seventh-day Adventist would swing you.
In a time of great crisis, lives changed by the Seventh-day Adventist message changed history. Today, that same Adventist message is still changing history, one heart at a time, all across the South Pacific.